Thank you. We're going to call the Wednesday, March 8th meeting of the Community and Economic Development Committee to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Chair Edson.
Here.
Vice Chair Shields.
Here.
Councilmember Lovell. Here. Councilmember Pryor.
Here.
Planning Commissioner Arth.
Here.
Thank you. Now we need a motion to approve the agenda.
Chair.
Councilmember Shields.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Could I have a second? I have a motion by Councilmember Shields and a second by Councilmember Lovell to approve the agenda. Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Shields.
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell. Aye. Councilmember Pryor.
Aye.
Chair Edson.
Aye. Do we have any public comments to start the meeting? Okay. And now we will move on to the first order of business, approval of the February 8th CEDC action letter.
Chair.
Councilmember Shields.
I move to approve the February 8th, 2023 Community and Economic Development Action Letter.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Shields and a second by Councilmember Lovell to approve the February 8th action letter. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lovell.
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor.
Aye.
Chair Edson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Shields.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. And now I want everybody on the committee to get comfortable. And we're going to start with the public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan for 2023 and 24. And who's going to start the presentation?
Chair.
Yes.
Do I need to swear people in for this?
Oh, okay. Yes. Would you please swear them in, please? I think everybody who's applying needs to raise your hand. Okay. Oh, David says stand and raise your right hand. Let's. That was lovely. Thank you. All right.
All right.
Sarah.
Yes, I'm
Yes.
Sarah Tilbury, and I am the CDBG Administrator for the City of Lee Summit. And tonight we are here for our public hearing for the 2023 Annual Action Plan. So a little intro to CDBG. In 1994, Lee Summit was designated as an entitlement community. With this designation, the city receives an annual allocation of funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development through the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is CDBG. With this funding, the city is required to meet at least one of three national objectives, which include to benefit low to moderate income persons, address slum or blight, or to address an urgent need. In order to keep receiving this funding, the city is required to develop several plans each year. The first one is our consolidated plan. That is a 5-year plan, and that identifies the community's needs, how we prioritize those needs, and then detailed strategies to address those needs. That plan was adopted in December of 2019, and that 5-year plan goes through 2024. After that, we have our citizen participation plan. That is just a plan that sets forth our policies and procedures of how we administer the funding within the community. It also encourages public participation while we develop the plan. That plan can be amended. It was first adopted in December of 2019, and then we did amend it in June of 2020 with COVID-19 waivers and additional funding. The reason we are here tonight is the annual action plan, and that is just a more detailed plan with specific projects, activities, and then a budget for each of the 5 program years. This is our 4th year of the action plan. So in the action plan, it's just more, we identify the goals and objectives and directly link them back to our con plan goals. Each project has to have a funding source and how much we will be funding each project. And then we also identify the performance measures and the anticipated outcomes of each program. So a little snapshot of how we are here tonight. We opened our funding application back in January. That was open online for a month. During that time frame, we also held a public pre-application meeting. All of tonight's applicants did attend the meeting, and in that pre-app meeting, we discussed the funding and kind of what we're looking to do this year and how we will address those goals. After that, during the month of February, staff reviewed the applications. We reached out to several of the applicants just to clarify some questions on funding and the beneficiaries. Once we had all of that information, we evaluated and prioritized each application and came up with a funding recommendation, which we will present at the end of this presentation. Tonight is our public hearing. After tonight's presentation, we have a public comment period that is open for 30 days, so that will go through April 10th. During that time, the public can view our action plan on the website, or hard copies are also available upon request from Development Services. Once the public comment period has closed, we will take any comments that have been received, add those into our plan, make any adjustments as needed, and then go to council in May for adoption. We hope to have the plan submitted by late May, early June. HUD does take about 45 days to review our plan, and our program year starts July 1st, so the quicker we can submit our plan to HUD, the better. So with the applications, we look at the completeness of the application, whether or not the agency is eligible, and if their program is eligible. We look at if they are meeting any priority needs and how many needs they are meeting. And then also the agency's capacity to carry out their program and stay within federal and city standards. In addition, we also have to take into account the funding caps that HUD has placed. So for administration, that is maxed out at 20%, public services is 15%, and then in addition to that, at least 70% must be used to benefit low to moderate income persons. We also look at what the urgency and consequences if we did not fund a program. And then lastly, we look at the agency's past history of performance and their compliance risk just to protect us in case of any audit findings. So looking back, this year we actually do know our allocation. Most years we do not, but this year we have been allocated $354,909. This is an increase of $21,500 from the previous year. As you can see, our funding stays pretty consistent. Our high was back in 2018, and that was the $390,000. And then last year was actually our lowest amount. You'll see there are 2 additional funding allocations in 2020. That was our COVID funding, and all of that funding has now been exhausted, and we do not foresee getting any more COVID funding. So with that money, here's a few things we have accomplished, and this is through the second quarter of 2022, so these numbers will increase once the program year is completed. So in 2022, we allocated $50,011.35 to our 4 public service agencies. To date, this funding has benefited 541 Lee Summit residents. And then in addition to that, we allocated $235,500 to construction and rehabilitation projects. That includes Lee Summit Housing Authority. They have completed phases 1 and 2 of the exterior remodel at Duncan Estates, and phase 3 is currently underway. This has benefited 18 low to moderate income households in Lee Summit. And then in addition to that, Truman Habitat has continued the home preservation program. In that program, they have benefited 12 Lee Summit households by receiving minor home repairs, and that has included siding, tree removal, roof repairs, foundation repairs, HVAC replacement, and driveway repairs. So they have done quite a bit in just the first 6 months of the program year. So up next, each agency is going to present their program. Once that is completed, I will come back and present our funding recommendation. With that, we will open it up for public comment, and we can discuss any movements or changes we want to make within the funding recommendation. And then hopefully by the end of tonight, we will have a recommendation to move forward for council approval. So I will start. The City of Lee Summit, we are requesting $67,725.55. That is just to administer the program and do all the reporting for HUD. And that's that. So up next, we have Coldwater. Monica is here to present their program. Just click the mouse.
Okay. All right, thank you for the opportunity to come talk about Coldwater's program tonight. We appreciate all your assistance you've given us in the past. So the program that we are asking for assistance with is our Back Snack Food Pack program. And this program is to help preschool and school-age kids with food for the weekend. And this funding would go for 32 children of the 258 that we will serve. And we help with elementary school children, middle school kids, Summit Ridge Academy, Great Beginnings Early Education Center, and the Head Start schools and early Head Start schools here in Lee Summit. So those are the kids who would be getting those food packs. There we go. So the kids that we are really targeting with this program are the kids in our school district who are food insecure, and they are identified through the school district. And Harvesters has already identified in our community that there are at least 600 kids that are chronically hungry. And so we, with the assistance of the school district and Harvesters, we do this program, and the school district helps us identify them, and Harvesters provide some of the food for that program, and then Coldwater provides the other food and all the volunteers to make the program work. Over 110 chronically hungry children are in our preschool program, and that number continues to grow throughout the school year. This has already changed since I submitted these slides. I know it's up to at least 112 last time I talked to the person that runs that program, so it's a number that's constantly on the rise. Okay, and why we do this program, some of the findings from Harvesters when they originally put together their Back Snack program was that the grades will improve as much as 18% when the kids are not going hungry and they're able to concentrate more on their studies. And the Back Snack students had a 14% fewer absence and 23% fewer tardies. So the kids are actually just better with their attendance and their participation. 34% of the parents say their children's health improved, and 33% say their self-esteem improved. So the mental health of these kids are even helped with when they're able to have the right amount of food. And then the schools report that discipline issues for Back Snack students were cut in half. So the actions of the children in the classroom, because they're not hungry, are improved by having this food that helps them. We hear stories all the time where the kids are hoarding the food almost and making sure that they have enough food for later. So they'll keep this food in backpacks and things throughout the week, and it's really a sad story when you hear what's going on with these little children that are really hungry because they just don't have the adequate food in their houses. So we started doing the preschool program a few years ago because we were doing elementary school kids, and we knew that they were having to share with their smaller siblings, and so we expanded it into the preschool program, and we actually pack those ourselves through Coldwater because the Harvesters program doesn't include those. So we've been doing that for a while. Do you have any questions about the program or how it's run?
Any questions? What, are you all also serving middle school and high school?
We help with some of them. Some of the schools have their own pantries, but what we tell them is whenever they need products for their pantries, all they have to do is email us a list and we will take the product to them. Either we will purchase that or we have it in our supply in our food pantry. So some of them do have their own programs, but we are always there to help supplement them.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions? No? All right.
Thank you.
I think we're good right now. Thank you.
Okay, and next we have Hope House, and Eileen is here to present their program.
Now, how do you change? Just click on this little guy. Okay, all right, wonderful. Thank you very much. My name is Eileen Sheehan, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Hope House. and I'm here to talk about our court advocacy program. So our court advocacy program is where we focus on victims of domestic violence in working with law enforcement, in keeping victims safe and holding offenders accountability. We provide services such as crisis intervention, criminal court advocacy, accompaniment, legal advocacy, and individual advocacy. As I said, we work with the Lee Summit Police Department. We're very fortunate to have that working relationship with that police department. Also work very closely with the city prosecutor. Again, very important in our process in keeping victims safe. Hope House anticipates that the grant funding will provide approximately 100 unduplicated survivors who reside in Lee Summit with 115 units of court advocacy. So here are our numbers of what we served as an agency last year in 2022. Here we are looking at specifically in this program last year, we served 203 survivors of domestic violence, and that would be a total of 481 interventions and a total of 171 hours of service. Our lethality program. So I'm fortunate enough to be around long enough to be a part of that lethality program when we first started that. The City of Lee Summit, the police department stepped up and decided that it would be a kind of a trial as this national model was rolling itself out about 15 years ago. And the City of Lee Summit partnered with us and the Maryland Network to End Domestic Violence. And so what this program does is that when law enforcement respond to a domestic violence call, they screen, an intimate partner calls a tool that has been looked at specifically for lethality assessment. And if someone screens in high danger, they then contact our hotline, and through our hotline, we work with the officer and the victim if they want to do safety planning or want to come into shelter. Through that, we do follow up with them. We set up an appointment and follow up and make sure that they understand kind of how the process goes. If they needed an order of protection, just start making that connection. We know the sooner we make a connection, the better off we're going to be in getting somebody the services that they need. For the City of Lee Summit, last year there were 292 survivors who were assessed and 73% screened in as high lethal. And that was an increase in 21 by 6%. And our program success, 202, in 2022, 100% of survivors increased their strategies to enhance their safety. All were very favorable in knowing resources available to them and what else was able to, oh, sorry, lost my spot. And what else was available to them. We understand that being a part of this process is scary, but we are there to make sure that victims have all the resources that they need and understand the systems as they are something very scary when you're making a life-changing decision. So a story, we have Stacy, changed her name. She contacted the Lee Summit Police Department for assistance. Stacy had an ex parte order of protection, but was continuously being harassed and threatened by her abusive partner. Stacy made connection with our advocate. From there, we were able to work with our advocate in getting her legal services. We do have 3 contract attorneys who assist with divorce, child custody, and orders of protection, so they were able to assist her in getting that full order of protection, walking through that process, and then Stacy continues to participate in Hope House services. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the committee? Councilmember Shields, please.
Yeah, could you just talk, and maybe the case of Stacy sort of helped to illuminate that, but could you just talk a little bit about what a unit of advocacy looks like? What does it look like for someone who gets a resource through your program? Is it a staff member, a volunteer that kind of walks them through the process, or how does that work?
Absolutely. We have a full-time court advocate who works specifically with the Lee Summit Police Department. And actually, she's housed over at the Lee Summit Police Department as of just a couple weeks ago. And her job is to make contact with all the domestic violence cases, the victims of those cases that come through the police department. give them information with regards to the court system, how to get an emergency order of protection if that's something that they need, and just to be there as a resource. Our advocate is then present in municipal court and takes a statement from the victim, sees where they are, lets them know kind of how the court process will work. So she then sits with them throughout that process. Again, gives that information to the prosecutor kind of helps, knows that has that information is how to proceed with each case, because every situation is different. And then our advocate does follow-up phone calls, calls them after court, make sure things are okay. Again, talks to them on how to get an order of protection, which is a civil matter, which you file for that in Independence, so our advocate can assist with that process. Our advocate also contacts victims before court, again, just to let them know I'm going to be there. This is what you should be expecting. I mean, it's a scary time. Maybe they're afraid to come even park in the parking lot and walk inside. So our advocate then will work with the police department, meet them at the door, meet them out in the parking lot waiting for them, and bring them in safely. So advocacy looks different, I think, for each person, but the main thing is we are present in the municipal court system and as well as the civil court system, making sure victims understand their rights and resources that are available to them.
Thank you. And it sounds like it can be a really overwhelming process if you don't know how it works, so I'm sure that's very helpful for them. Thank you for explaining.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right, thank you very
Fantastic.
much.
Thank you very much for your time and your support. And that wasn't that bad, so that's all right.
Okay, and next we have Luann Ross with Hillcrest, and she'll be presenting the case manager.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for hearing us this evening and for past support of our program here in Lee Summit. So again, I'm Luann Ross. I'm Vice President of Programs with Hillcrest Transitional Housing. And we have 16 apartment units here in Lee Summit, not far from here, where we provide rent and utility-free apartments for families and individuals that are literally homeless or at risk of homelessness. And I will share with you that one of the unique things about this program in serving homelessness is most HUD funds right now. You have to literally be homeless, be in a shelter, be in your car on the street, which is definitely a need. But we focus on working with families before they fall over that cliff and get in that on that HUD wait list. So we work with folks that you might hear the term couch surfing, or that are maybe sleeping on someone's floor but don't have permanent housing and just need some time to catch up and get back on their feet. So again, it's a 90-day transitional program. Folks pay no fees or anything to be with us. We provide intensive case management, life skills classes, all focused around getting those folks from where they are to where they need to be, and goal setting. We also provide transportation services. We have a food pantry. We have almost anything that they would need. We have funds that can provide for that. So our ask this evening, this $20,000, will help us offset some of the case manager's salary, so we have additional funds to provide additional services. And I'm not flipping through the slides. So we have 7 sites all over the Kansas City metro area. Here in Lee Summit, we served 40 families last year, which was 85 individuals, and 45 of those were children. We also, I'd like to share that that group of individuals paid off $29,000 worth of debt, which is mainly PAC utilities, back rent, court fees, fines, tickets, and that sort of thing. So that's money going right back in to the system. And then those folks are then able to use those to break down barriers that prevent housing opportunities going further. And they also saved over $38,000 before they left our program. Again, I shared why we're unique, because we serve all levels of homelessness. We focus mostly on single moms with kids, but we serve individuals that come to us in any form or fashion and what they define their as their family. And then we do have a wait list. There is an interview process that's fairly quick. And I don't have to tell you that the need is growing with the housing costs rising. And we've lost so many landlords here in Lee Summit and in Jackson County that we partnered with since COVID and all those challenges that would take our families because they knew of the hard work they were doing while in our program. And so folks are staying with us even longer, even if they're ready at that 90th day to launch off. They've taken care of what they need to. It's just taking longer to find permanent housing. So there's a little commercial for affordable and housing development. So any questions?
Questions? I do have a question. So you said this is money to help pay for the salary for a case manager?
Right.
Okay, so what do you do if next year you don't get that funding?
We would still move forward with our program. Absolutely. Like I said, it just helps us offset those costs so then we can do more for the families that we serve.
Okay,
For that transportation assistance, childcare, et cetera.
okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, and next we have Matt Sanning with Lee Summit Social Services.
Good evening. I am Matt Sanning. I'm with Lee Summit Social Services. We are a full-service emergency assistance agency for folks here in Lee Summit. We do work with the low to moderate income families in any way, shape, or form that they approach our agency. And so what we've done over the last couple of years has been a little crazy, but we got through it, and a lot of it had to do with CDBG support. During COVID, especially, money was coming in from different agencies and a lot of different places. And one of the things that I think that we sometimes take for granted is how awesome the CDBG staff is. I've talked to a lot of other municipalities, and they're not having as much luck. So Amy and Sarah are absolutely tremendous at navigating some very complex systems and things that just were not easy to navigate. So our appreciation to them. Oh, I have slides. That's one of two. We were established in 1992. This agency means a great deal to this community, mostly in part because it was started by this community. This was a church initiative. It was with the Ministerial Alliance, but then once the city was able to engage, we were able to start tackling more complex issues. And so over these last couple of years, as Luanna said, we're seeing a lot of dynamics changing in the housing market. You all know, you see it every day. And so one of the biggest challenges, again, as Luann mentioned, is we are seeing new landlords, new property managers, and not all of them have the same relationships or have the desire to create one. Some of them do, some of them are great, but as we lose some of that connection with those Lee Summit folks, it becomes more challenging to keep people housed. And so during this time, our rent and utility obligations to keep folks in their house has gone through the roof. The city's been very supportive of that, but so much of that was because CDBG allows us to keep the lights on and keep going. It allows our volunteers to come in and do some really cool things at the agency and work with these folks one-on-one so that we can address the needs as they come in. As a result of that, just in 2022, the utility assistance was $263,000. Now that's quite a bit more than we normally give to any families, but obviously COVID played a large part of that. There was another $3-4 million that went straight to rental payments alone. And so on an average year, our agency will average about $1.7-1.9 million in overall giving. But over these last 2 years, it's been approximately $5.5 million. And so much of that, again, because we were able to keep the lights on and keep our folks there, take care of the stuff we have to, like insurance and vehicle costs, you keep us going. So we're grateful, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
2 slides, that was impressive. I'm very impressed.
We were able to get in small enough font.
I like it. I'm good with
It's
it.
simple. I keep all the other slides up here.
Well, yeah. Are there any questions from staff at this point in time? No, 2 slides, no questions. That's awesome.
Thank you
That's
very much.
awesome.
Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Okay, that wraps up public service, so now we have our construction category.
Well, before you go on,
Okay,
so, when I look at the sheet, correct? The amounts, the public services with the 15% cap, we can't move those to, I'm about to say the pink area. We
No.
can't move those, and those can't move up, correct?
we can move money out of public service, but not into it. So that
Oh,
cap is
okay.
at the 20, or the 15%. So, I mean, you could not fully fund public service and move it to either admin or other.
Okay,
But the public service, we can't move anything into it to exceed the 15%.
okay, so hang on. So, I want to take the temperature of the committee. Do you all want to talk about the four we just heard? Since they are in their own category and those amounts right now? Or do you want to get through the, construction before and talk about everything together? Pardon me? All right, we'll just go on and then we'll talk about it all at the end. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well then we have Eric Berg with Lee Summit Housing Authority.
Yes, thank you, members, and thank you, staff. Also, Ms. Edson, thank you for that transition, since the numbers I'm asking for are whole multiples of what my esteemed colleagues are asking for. So, yeah, I am Eric Berg with the Lee Summit Housing Authority. We are public housing authority. We're one of 3 in Jackson County. We have a total of 116 public housing units here in the city of Lee Summit on 2 properties. As my slide shows, obviously our residents are paying 30% of whatever their total household income is toward rent and utilities. We also operate a Section 8 voucher program. That's not germane to tonight's matters. But if you see at the bottom of the slide, our public housing program, we have a preference to serve seniors, so age 62 or up, and those with mental or physical disabilities. You see the stats on our 2 properties. We have the Lee Haven Apartments, which is just down the block here, with about 50 units opened in 1967. And we have the Duncan Estates property, opened in 1996 with 66 units. Our request here is phase 4 of a continuing effort to rehab the exterior for Duncan Estates. Just as a little bit of background, and I do have some information on the slide, this property was built in 1996, duplex style. They're about 625 square feet plus a 1-car garage, which our residents really like. This property, when it was built, it really hasn't had substantial exterior rehab in the 25, 26 years since. So as you can see here, phases 1 through 3 have just been literally taking as many buildings as we can do for the amount of money that we have and doing a complete exterior rehab. So you're talking about switching out old vinyl siding for cement hardy board siding. You're talking about switching out older double pane windows for double pane low E windows. We have new steel front doors that are going in. We're doing the soffits, we're doing the eaves, we're doing the gutters. We're really taking everything into account except, well, we don't have garage doors replaced, but we take care of the maintenance on that. So we're really cycling through all these units to set this property up for the next 25 years. We're investing in better products, more durable products, and more energy efficient products, frankly. As you can see there, last year, or for what we're doing right now, for phase 3, the city made a grant of $110,000. We're coupling that with some of our own funds. We're gonna get 8 units done this summer. Phases 1 and 2, between the 2 of them, we did 10 buildings, and we got that all done, and folks are pretty happy with the results. So we're now talking about phase 4. Again, as I said, we're talking about all the exterior systems really except for the garage doors, and we replaced those frequently enough that we didn't include them. What we'd like to do, what we're proposing to do, is all those exterior systems for 5 total buildings. So 5 total buildings would be 10 units since they're duplexes. Project cost, we're estimating at about $300,000. We are requesting $250,000. The city's support through CDBG has been vital to make our own funds really stretch. We've literally doubled the number of units we can do at one time. Everybody's fairly aware of what construction prices on materials and labor have done over the past couple of years. We've had many, we've had to reevaluate how many units can we do based on that. So the city's investment, whatever the city is able to do, really helps us to stretch those funds that we have and get more units done faster. As I say here, it would leverage about $50,000 of our own capital improvement funds for fiscal year 2024. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. How many slides did you have?
I had 3. I was told to do 3.
Okay, I lost count. I lost count above 2. I just couldn't count anymore.
There's a lot in these.
Yeah. I don't know. All right, do we have any questions? Well, I'll kick it off. We'll see. You requested, well, you've got a total estimated project cost of $300,000.
Yes.
And then you had request for phase 4, 250. And you have, with that, you can do 5 buildings or 10 households, correct? So at an amount of $120,000, what can you do?
So right now, the best estimates are it's about $53,000 a unit. So $120,000 would basically be, roughly around 2 to 3. Obviously, we're going to do as much with our own funds as we can do. These are duplexes, so I really don't want to do half a duplex. If 120 was all the city could do, basically we would just figure on doing 2 buildings, and I would have to see what other funds I could scrounge up on my own to make up the difference.
Okay. And since you're government, basically, right? So you don't have the option of really, you can get other grants, right? Or no? What kind of grants can you get?
We are allowed to go after other grant sources. We are not a nonprofit in that we do a whole bunch of charitable giving, a bunch of charitable fundraising. Most of our funding, 99% of our funding, comes from federal government and other sources.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions? No, not right now. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And our last presenter, I believe, is on Zoom, so we'll need to look that up. Okay, and Christina, are you here?
I am. Hi, Sarah.
Go ahead.
Are you
Yes.
able to hear me? Okay, thank you, members of the committee. I appreciate the flexibility to be here virtually, as we had a important grant deadline that we were trying to meet. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited to be here again, renewing our request for the ongoing work we've been doing with the Lee Summit Home Preservation Program. This would be, I think we're getting ready to complete our 3rd year of that program, and we feel very good about the work that we've done so far, and just the partnership that we've had with the City of Lee Summit, the incredible work that your staff does to get us through what can be some cumbersome process anytime you're doing home repair with federal dollars. We are coming back with a request for just sustaining the program funding as has been committed in the prior year at $130,500, and that we estimate will get us 12 to 15 projects or 12 to 14 projects depending on the level of other funding support and donation of labor and materials we're able to bring to the project, as is the habitat model. I think the first slide that we have that provides detail, you can kind of see here the nature of the projects that we've been doing in the Lee Summit community. Some items of significant note in the needs that we're encountering
Christina, can
largely
you
have.
share your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're not seeing your presentation.
Sarah, I guess I thought the slides would be there in the room. Let me see. There we go.
Okay, you're good.
Great. Thank you. Sorry about that. I was not thinking to ask for that. So here you can see some of the critical needs we're encountering. Most often we're seeing more needs in the application than we can actually fulfill with the dollars. And so we're going to always focus on those repairs that are going to give us the best chance of that homeowner sustaining the property in terms of what those improvements do to increase the longevity. So obviously we're looking at roofs and foundation repair and those major mechanical systems that can really decrease the property's occupant's safety and the affordability of the home. Roofs in particular have been a focus. And the other thing that we're seeing is a critical need for removal of trees. With a beautiful community like Lee Summit in those older neighborhoods, you're going to see a lot of trees that are really, while they're beautiful, threaten the structures themselves. And so anytime we have a tree that's growing into the home, disrupting the stability of the foundation walls and roof, or threatening to fall, which that is most often what we would consider an emergency critical need to get that tree out of there. Those have become some of the more expensive investments, sometimes approaching near $10,000 or more. So that is one of the things that we're seeing applied for quite often in our older communities. We also are looking to stabilize those improvements that are highly visible from the streetscape that might be considered code violations under your property maintenance code in Lee Summit. And so in that way, we're seeing a need for very deteriorated driveways and sidewalks, and those most often because we're serving seniors and people with limited mobility are also important to the safety and quality of life for the occupants. I would just like to share a few anecdotal stories about the impact that this program is having in your community. We are really excited that in the Lee Summit community, you've got some wonderful community organizations and opportunities to partner. We have a partnership with the Woods Chapel United Methodist Church that allows us to work with a group of retirees that are willing to donate skilled labor and oftentimes additional funding support to help the dollars that you're investing in the community go further. So one good example is one of these projects for a senior where we needed to spend that $10,000 to remove a tree and repair the damage that had been done to the house's siding and some of the important roof elements where rot had taken hold. And because of the funding from the home repair program that Lee Summit funds, we were able to do that tree removal with a contracted vendor there from the Lee Summit community. But then we were able to come in with the volunteer group and some additional funds they contributed, do wood rot repair and replacement. And then they were so excited about the work that they were doing for that homeowner that they volunteered to paint the home as well. So that was a really good community partnership to highlight. And then another one where we encountered an individual who was caring for a loved one who is wheelchair bound, needing a very important aging in place improvement that allowed them to have full access of a bathroom in their home. Because we were there doing repair in critical improvements, we were able to get a project that should have cost by bid documentation about $20,000 for an accessibility improvement. We were able to get that done for $9,000. because the contractor donated labor and materials to bring that project within the budget that the Lee Summit Home Repair program allowed. So just wanted you to know how important this partnership that we have is, not just to getting obviously what are some really critical improvements in place, but also just getting the organizations and businesses in your community involved with giving back to the community and volunteering to lift their neighbors up. We're always want to brag about how the Habitat for Humanity model is just as much about developing a love of neighbor and community, because the model invites people into other people's suffering to make a difference. So be happy to answer any questions about the success of this program, if you have any.
All right, thank you. I'll start. So I remember the former minor home repair program had a pretty rigorous application progress that was sometimes too much for the homeowners and a little intrusive. What is your process for these homeowners?
I would say just, a good part of that application detail is prescribed to us by HUD regulation as far as what they expect us to collect in terms of income eligibility and proof of ownership. That part really hasn't changed a whole lot, but what I will say is we have adapted to the needs of, one, us working in the Lee Summit community, which is a little bit further away from our central office, but we have a home preservation staff that has a very value add approach, in that they take their team to the homeowner at their convenience and meet with them at their location of choice and walk them through the application process, which they're able to do through a digital means, and collect documentation that they may have there at their home, but they don't have a way to scan or copy. And so our staff are able to do that for them on site in real time, if that's their comfort level. I think the application process itself doesn't seem to be as much of a challenge for us as it is getting applicants. And that's something that we continue to focus on, all the opportunities that are available to get the word out, because most often it's absolutely not that there's not a need. We know there is. It's reaching people where they're at and being able to meet their needs for how they communicate and exchange information. We do have a resource fair, I think, that's coming up in the city of Lee Summit that we will be participating in April, which will provide one of those great opportunities to hopefully find families who could utilize this opportunity. I would like to share that because the city staff invited us to consider putting into the State of Missouri Department of Economic Community Revitalization Grant Program, which was a fund that became available through the recovery program to apply for. We are expecting to be successful in securing what will be match dollars that can be used in the city of Lee Summit to leverage even greater improvements, up to $15,000 to $25,000 improvements for homeowners in the community. And that's all as a result of us having done what would be already counted towards match. We have 21 projects that we did in Lee Summit that are eligible match activities that will leverage additional funds for the community. And so we're anticipating getting that award, and that will just make your commitment of funds altogether more meaningful to getting additional projects in the community. And obviously the need for applicants will be much stronger.
Okay, thank you so much. One other question I have is, so if I asked you in a year, hey, did you spend the $130,000 in Lee Summit? What would your answer be?
A year from now?
Yeah.
All the money the $130,000 that we get will absolutely be spent in Lee Summit. the challenge of spending it within a 1-year time frame is largely that, the unpredictability of construction season, of issues around subcontractor availability if work on the project has to be subcontracted, some of the process of going through environmental review and things, which I have to say in Lee Summit has been very easy to work with and not typically a problem, but all the money will be spent there eventually.
Okay,
Whether
and
it gets done in
that's
12,
really what
yeah.
I was getting at. Yeah, that's what I
Okay,
was asking.
sorry.
I wasn't too worried about the timeline, but
Okay.
that's a good point. Thank you. All right. Does anybody have any last questions? Not for her? Okay. All right. I think we're done. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so the moment we've all been waiting for. So our funding recommendation, so this year our award is for $354,909. In addition to that, we have $16,552.90 remaining from prior years, which brings us to a total of $371,461.90. So you all have our funding recommendation. So we already alluded to this, but the caps, so the admin is at 20%, public services at 15%, and then the other cap, there's no cap on that. So we can move funding between anywhere but public service, basically. You can move it out of public service, but not into public service or admin. How we came up with this recommendation, the public services, those are all at, I believe it's 68% of their request. And then on the other, that is, we tried to reach the minimums on both of those. And then for admin, we requested, I believe it's about 95%. We didn't request the full amount in order to fully fund the construction projects. So we moved the remaining admin funding into the other category. So from there, if you have any changes you want to make or questions.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Shields.
You can just
I
tell.
can see you staring at me out of the corner of my eye.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Okay, so I was looking through the materials that were presented to us ahead of the meeting. So the minimum request, that's basically what each agency has said, this is the minimum for us to really accomplish anything. And if you gave us less than this, the paperwork wouldn't really be worth the time, kind of?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. The prior year funds, so do those, like when we say that the cap on the public services is 15% of our allocation, the prior year funds, could those be moved anywhere else, or do they have to stay in that other category?
They have to stay in the other category.
Okay, even though it looks like they came out of like Lee Summit Social Services last year?
Correct. So Lee
Okay.
Summit Social Services, that was from their HVAC program, which was another program last year.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yes, but no, those funds can't be moved into public services because that would go over the 15%
Okay.
cap.
Okay, so that's set even for the funds that we already had on hand? Okay.
Councilmember Shields, if I may, one distinction, we refer to it as public services, but it's really public services programs and programming versus a hard construction type of item. So the 15% cap is for programmatic items. And so.
And I understand. I was just curious with if that cap was, 15% of the prior year could go to that too, or is it just that prior year is extra money and we have to put it somewhere else? I just wasn't sure exactly how the regulations worked on that. And then, so the administration costs, I know it's a lot of work getting all the paperwork in and everything accounted for appropriately. And I know that's a lot of staff time. What would happen if we didn't put that money into the administration line?
I will refer to Amy for that. Most likely, the city would cover it.
Yes, Amy Keeneman, Administration Manager for Development Services. That would just be covered by the general fund.
Okay. So,
So right now, how it is, we are recouping 95% of the amount available in public services. That is about 58% of what it costs to run the total program. The total cost is about $115,000 to run the program.
and again, like I understand there's a lot of reporting, it feels so crazy that it's costing us almost a third of what we're getting just to deal with the reporting requirements. And I know there's a whole application process, there's a lot that goes into it. It just, again, not that I can't understand it, but it just bothers me that there's more on the administration line than on the public services. And I know that's only one part of the money that's going to our community, but it just fundamentally bothers me that it's costing us more to administer this than we can actually put towards some of these other programs. So I'm happy to hear other people's thoughts on it. Again, I know we need to be able to administer the program to get the funds. I just look at those numbers and it bugs me.
No, and I think, if I remember correctly, I think that's a point of contention every year this comes up, that council members talk about the administration costs and everything else. So, Mr. Elam, you look like you want to say something.
The only thing I would add is that, yes, you're correct. Every year, it seems like we do have, the kind of the conversation over the cost of the program overall. And we also have the conversation over the 15% cap. I think that if you would ask any one of us, we would like to get rid of that cap. That's set by the federal government. And so from a staff perspective, we look at it as a cost share. So our administrative cost and everything is associated with the program, and that's the cost of getting 75% more, I guess.
Councilmember Shields, you want to say? No, Yeah, I know. Is the cost share, I'm trying to figure this out. Do we use that to help pay for the salaries of the administrators? Is that how that's rolled into?
The CDBG program administration portion right there, yeah, that goes, so we account for the time, and as Sarah mentioned, we only recover a portion of the time, and it's based off of what we're allowed to recoup. That goes back to the general fund.
Okay. All right, thank you. Councilmember Pryor?
Thank you. How do they determine how much each city gets?
Okay, so there is a formula. Amy has we'll try to talk through it. So there is a formula. We are based on Formula A, and that is based on our population and is weighted. Can we put this up here? Okay, hold on. Okay, oh man. Okay. So there are two different formulas that HUD uses. We are always Formula A, so that is based on our population, and that's weighted at 25%. The people in poverty also weighted at 50%, and then the number of overcrowded units. We have requested the numbers from HUD. We have requested it by phone call, by letter. They'll never give us the actual amount, like what numbers they're using. We have tried numerous times, but we have always been on a Formula A. And I think Amy has something to add.
Yep, so they'll run the equation by Formula A, Formula B, and whichever is greater is what they end up giving to the city.
Does that kind of answer it?
It does.
Yes,
Thank
we've
you.
tried to get the actual numbers, but HUD isn't very open about that. And
Did you get your questions answered? Councilmember Lovell? You've been shockingly quiet. Do you have anything? I know. Commissioner Arth?
I don't have anything either right now.
Okay. Well, and I did have, but something got explained to me, so no, I don't. I'm glad you explained about the minimums. That was a great explanation of anything less than a minimums, and it's not worth it to them, and I appreciate that. Because I don't like, I think all the recommendations for public services, great. You know, I think we all want to give everybody more money. And I think we all see, what, $70,000 that we could give as more, $67,000 in more money. But down in the other category, I get the minimums on term and heritage habitat and the minor home repair program, which is what I'm going to call it. But I do wish we could find a way to give more money to the housing authority, because when I look at what they're going to be able to do, it's very little with the money we're going to give them. And the housing authority keeps chugging along, and I would like to be able to find more money to give the housing authority.
And the only option, we can move that from admin. So I believe Eric said it was 57,000 per unit. So, I mean, if they wanted to do another unit, we can move 57,000 from admin to housing authority. And that would just leave admin pretty low, but.
Do you just say that out loud?
I mean, there have been years that admin's never been funded, so. Hopefully I still get paid.
Just like, just a minute. I want to hear what the committee members have to say about that.
They have to go to finance and budget if we are taking money out of a fund that's being allocated, or can we do that?
So this whole funding recommendation will go to the full council. So it's 100% a council decision as to whether to fund that portion of admin or not. And the direction from the city council will provide city staff with the direction for the budgetary purposes.
Okay.
Long-winded way of saying that I believe that you could have the conversation as a whole council, and it would be based off of your recommendation.
And then while I'm hot here, I just just the question in the public services bracket, like request versus minimum request. I mean, is the minimum request kind of arbitrary? Like it's saying like Lee Summit Social Services can't take anything less than 20,000, right? Because it wouldn't, based on their projections, their minimum is, like, is that an arbitrary number to say, like, again, I'm not picking on them, and it's like Coldwater is saying 2,500.
Ms. Tilbury?
Or how they, or even just how they request the amounts too. Like, I mean, we're only, for Coldwater, they're requesting 8,000, and there were a lot of backpacks that wasn't going to support. So how are they coming up with those numbers, whether it's a request or the minimum request?
The minimum that we ask from them is at what point would the money not be worth it? So if you're asking for 8,000 and we can only give you 1,000, would it be worth it? And at that point, if they say 2,500, then no, the 1,000 would not be worth it. We did have several, I think 2 agencies that their minimum was the full request. So we contacted them to verify if that actually was the case, and that's where they changed. So when for social services, the 20,000, that is what they need in order for the grant to be worth it, as far as them having to do the quarterly reports and the reporting for us and just keeping track of all the paperwork. And
if that's a true cost, why is it $2,500 for one group and $20,000 for another group if it's the same paperwork?
I would guess based on who is completing the paperwork. That's the agency's.
Yeah, and I guess the reason for my questioning is just trying to, I want to be, these are all worthy programs, and if someone asks for more and they have a minimum for more, I'm trying to, I'd rather split it all equally, but again.
First, I'm going to go to Mr. Elam. Okay, Mr. Elam?
So I'll just say that the application process is a public application process that is advertised, and so each applicant has the opportunity to put forth their grant request, if you will, knowing that there will be more requests than there are dollars available. So the application is set up to say, what program are you funding? What is that going to accomplish? What goals are you going to achieve with that funding? And so I think the scalability is a little bit of kind of what I'm hearing you say a little bit. Well, if it's an 8,000 program versus a 2,500 program, I think that is really up to the applicant to make that determination in their request as to will it be impactful enough on them to continue to move forward, as well as meeting the goals of the consolidated plan and the annual action plan. I'm not. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio because program size is different. Is another way of thinking about it.
And Mr. Lovell, one of our applicants is dying to answer your question. Is that okay? Mr. Sandy, you've got to come down to the microphone. Doesn't matter which one.
Thank you. So this federal program has certain requirements, and for our agency in particular, we have to participate in the financial accountability, so our CPAs, our audits, the systems that we use to capture data points that would qualify under HUD's requirements. All the demographics are actually in a HMIS, or Homeless Management Information Software, so they meet HUD standards as HUD continues to change. And so the monies that we receive help support the programming that we have to have in place in order to qualify partially for CDBG. Is that clear as mud?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we couldn't come up with the data that would be requested to fulfill the program requirements without participating in those other surrounding support systems. I think that makes sense up here. May not out here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And with the request, our recommendation is based on a percentage of the full request. In prior years, we have used the minimums, but this year with public service, it seemed more fair to do a percentage. But that's...
I also remember we changed something last year, like right when we got on council. Like we agreed to this, and then there was a funding change too.
Yeah, we just
I don't remember. Do
switched
you remember
some
what that
amounts,
was? I
but
think
we kept the minimums.
Yeah, and well, last year at the public hearing, we did not know our award amount, so we based it on the prior year, and then when we got to council, we had our award, and it was less. So we had to change the
Gotcha.
recommendations.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Shields, what would you like to do?
I would like to give more money to the Lee Summit Housing Authority so they can do another unit.
Okay. Would you like to take that out of planning and administration?
I think yeah, I wouldn't want to take it out of the public services, and that's the only other spot that's available.
Okay. Can I have any discussion on taking the planning and administration money and awarding it to Lee Summit Housing Authority, and we will find ways to pay staff to administer this program, because I'm sure we can, and we have to keep the staff members who are administrating the program, because they're looking very nervous right now. Yes, ma'am.
I just spoke with Housing Authority, and they said it'd be about $53,000 to do another unit. So I just wanted to kind of confirm if you're wanting to take 53 from admin, or if you're wanting to take the full 67,725 and put that toward Housing Authority.
All right, thank you for that information. Councilmember Pryor, would you like to weigh in here?
I think the 53. I don't think the full 67. I think the 53,000 to do one unit would be good.
Okay, thank you. Doing that. We're kind of doing things on the fly, so we're taking a minute. Commissioner Arth?
So since it's 120, that leaves you 14,000. So you could take 53 minus the 14. And that would be, what, 40? Gee. Yeah, 53 times 3. So 159.
I'm not sure what you're solving for right now.
Well, it would be less,
There's two houses, adding a third, you figure out 53.
159,000, and you have 120, so you would only need 39,000.
Well, I'm depending on the housing authority guy to what he needs, so I don't know. Mr. Berg, come on up. We're gonna do this on the fly, it'll be fun.
Yeah, so as I said before, it's about 53,000 a door, so that's like half a duplex. Our funding request of 120 would basically I put that in there as what would it take to do one building, 2 duplexes, that just make the most sense to me. We are gonna put 50,000 of our own funds toward it. That was the bare minimum that I could, from my budget, allocate toward this particular year. We appreciate anything that the commission is trying to do, and obviously we want to do as many of the buildings, since they're duplex, we want to do as many buildings as we can. At the same time, my intention was never to zero out the staff's esteemed salaries, because when it's time to do compliance and everything else, the three of us work pretty regularly together, so.
Well, Mr. Berg, you're not doing it, we're doing it.
Okay, well, as I said, I appreciate anything y'all want to do, because it helps us to
I'm
do
just gonna
a
take it
lot.
off you.
I just want to make
Yeah.
sure also we're clear, like, this is not a slight on what you guys are doing. And we will never do this if it jeopardizes your ability to do what you do and get paid. I think we're all clear with that, right? This has nothing to do with that at all. Very much appreciative of what you do, so.
Well, and just for the committee and staff to be clear, any change, this will all go before council, and council can say, the committee really screwed this up. So, there's a lot of things going on. All right, so, Mr. Berg, I think we're good right now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Shields, are you wanting to say something?
Oh, just that, also sitting on finance and budget, I know our tax revenues are coming in great this year, and I feel like staff could find a way to work within the city's budget to fund the salaries as needed and still make this adjustment that we're discussing, so.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much. All right, so if we take 53,000 of the 67 admin fee and add that to Housing Authority, okay?
So, we moved it up here, so that will leave admin at 14,725.55. And then housing authority will be at 173,000.
Now, did you say we can or cannot move admin into public services?
We cannot.
We cannot. Okay. So are you all comfortable leaving the 14,000 at admin, or do you want to move that down to other also? I'm just here to run the meeting.
I'm trying to try to do the math here, which I was told there would be no math today. What I want to do is understand, like, instead of just kind of arbitrarily throwing 53, if it is 53, that's right, but like, how much, they're throwing 50 grand into this. Does that get us 2 duplexes at 173 plus your 50?
Yeah, that would get us 2 duplex buildings.
2 duplex buildings,
So 4 units.
4 units.
Oh, wow.
right.
That's better.
So that's how I look at it. And I think if that math makes sense there, then I'm on board with that.
Chair, if I may throw something in just for conversation.
Not if it's gonna complicate things.
I mean, it may or may not complicate
Okay.
things. But just hearing the conversation and the desire of the council to get as much of the money as possible into the community, the minor home repair program, as you've referred to it, or the Habitat program, $10,000 on that is another project. And I'll also add that I believe it's been $10,000 since 1992.
And that is something Habitat has mentioned with the rising cost. A lot of the projects in Lee Summit are more than $10,000. They're getting up to like 12 and 15,000.
Okay, so why don't we take the remaining amounts of the admin and put that in the Truman program? Is that all right with you guys?
It's over their request, but, I mean, they would still be able, it would just add another home, or they could do a larger project on. I guess I should ask Christina if that's okay, but.
Is that acceptable from from HUD requirement standpoint to overfund an application?
Yes, ask that, thank you.
Yeah, the public service, we'd have to just move within public service.
Councilmember Shields? You're good?
I like this, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Lovell? You all are, okay. Councilmember Pryor? Yes, ma'am.
I'm good with it.
Okay, so it looks like these are our funding recommendations to send this to council. You all don't need a motion, thank you. Since it's not an ordinance, or? Yeah,
Yeah, we'd be looking for a recommendation of approval to the city council.
oh, okay. Councilmember Shields, did you hear that?
Chair?
Councilmember Shields?
I move to recommend to council for approval the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan for the program year 2023-2024.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Shields and a second by Councilmember Pryor to recommend the CDBG funding request action plan for program year 2023-24. Could I have a roll call, please?
Chair Shield, or Edson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Shields,
Aye.
Councilmember Lovell,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor.
Aye.
All right, it passed.
Chair,
And yes.
Sorry, just clarify, that was as you amended, right? Yes, okay.
Yes,
I just wanted to make that clear on the record.
thank you. Any last comments from staff?
No, thank you. We will update this and get our draft plan out tomorrow, and that'll be open for 30 days for the public to make any comments they want to make on it. And then when we come back to council, we'll have those comments. We never, I shouldn't say never, but we rarely receive comments, so it shouldn't change until council.
I do have one question, because you said there were a couple of groups you reached out to, and it was just too cumbersome for them and not worth it. It seems like we always have, and the groups who apply are great, but we always have the same groups. Any thoughts on that?
We have had the same applicants. We've actually lost an applicant or two the past couple of years. I think they have a lot of turnover, and it's just hard to keep someone in that position to do the reporting. I know, I think it was Lee Summit Elementary across the school, or across the street. They weren't able, they had a case manager, and they weren't able to fill the position, so they did not apply again. But the agencies that we have here tonight, none of them said that it wasn't worth it, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. For the committee and for staff, I thank you. I know this takes a lot of time. Thanks to the applicants, staff, and committee, I appreciate your attention and your willingness to be flexible. I greatly appreciate it. Committee, do you all have anything for roundtable? Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you again to the applicants for all the work that all of you are doing in the community. I've toured some of your facilities. I know you serve a lot of people with a lot of need, and I wish that we had more funds so we could fully fund every single one of your requests. So thank you for your time and thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you very much. Any final comments from staff?
Not about this item, but if you remember last month, we talked about accessory dwelling units. You'll see a push on social media in the next couple days. We're doing a survey, community survey about accessory dwelling units. And if you see that, please forward that on to your network so we can get as many responses as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Yes, Mr. Elam.
Just to add on a little bit to that, just kind of a preview of next month's meeting, what we've currently got slated. We are looking to bring the incentive policy discussion back to the committee at that April 12th meeting, as well as a few of the things that have been on the agenda that keep kind of dropping off, being the minor plats and infill policy, and again, the kind of the results of that ADU information. So just wanted to give you a little preview.
All right, thank you. Yeah, this committee this year, it's kind of like whiplash. Or we start down a path and then we have to talk about marijuana, and we start down back on the path and then we got to do CDBG. It's exciting. It's exciting, I'll say that. All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.